Soul Train. Of course, what really started the ball rolling for him was his television show. And the thing that makes it interesting is it's the first black-owned, the first black-sponsored, and the first black-produced television show.
Soul Train wasn't just a TV show. It was a cultural revolution that transformed how America saw music, dance, and black identity. But after more than 3 decades and thousands of episodes, the legendary program suddenly disappeared in 2006, leaving fans puzzled over what really happened. What caused the show that defined generations to vanish almost overnight? And why was there a mysterious episode that never aired? Behind the music and dance moves was a story of changing times, creative clashes, and a final recording session that became infamous for crossing lines the show had never dared before. Soul Train's meteoric rise. Soul Train was more than a television show. It was a cultural milestone that reshaped how Black Americans saw themselves and how the rest of the country perceived black music and dance. Created by Don Cornelius in 1970, it debuted as a local Chicago program, but quickly grew into a national sensation by 1971. Cornelius, a former news reporter with a vision, wanted to create a groundbreaking platform where black music and culture could be celebrated unapologetically. This vision was fueled by the social realities of the time, when racial segregation and limited media representation for black people made Soul Train a rare window into authentic black life. From its start, the show stood apart. It combined live performances with dynamic dancing, showcasing not just the stars, but everyday people who embodied the rhythm of Black America. Big companies like Sears and Johnson Products recognized its influence and lent their support, turning Soul Train into a business as well as a cultural phenomenon. Its mix of music, fashion, and dance created a vibrant celebration of identity that captivated millions across the country. During the peak years through the 1970s and early 1980s, Soul Train attracted the biggest names in soul, funk, and R&B: James Brown, Aretha Franklin, Marvin Gaye, and Michael Jackson with the Jackson 5, to name just a few. These performances were game changers in music television, bringing black artists into millions of living rooms with style and dignity. But the impact extended beyond performers. The show also elevated dancers like Rosie Perez and Jody Watley, whose moves and charisma helped define the era. One of the show's most beloved features was the Soul Train line, where dancers formed 2 lines and individuals strutted down the middle, showcasing their best steps. This wasn't just entertainment. It was a celebration of community and creativity that turned everyday dancers into stars momentarily. The Soul Train line became an emblem of expression, ritual, and belonging that many still remember fondly today. For many viewers at home, especially black audiences, Soul Train offered a rare space where they could see themselves reflected on television, dressed to impress and dancing with pride. This visibility mattered deeply in a period when mainstream media often marginalized or stereotyped black culture. The show was a source of joy and empowerment week after week, cultivating a sense of identity and cultural pride. Don Cornelius was the driving force behind this cultural engine. As host and creator, he exercised strict creative control over the show's tone, music, and imagery. His calm, serious demeanor contrasted with the vibrant energy on screen, grounding Soul Train in a kind of dignified cool. Cornelius believed TV should be inclusive and respectful, and he made sure Soul Train reflected a positive portrayal of black culture. Over more than 30 years, Soul Train produced over 1,000 episodes, becoming the longest-running music program in television history. At its height, it drew millions of viewers and attracted advertisers who recognized its power to reach black consumers. The show's success fueled spin-offs like the Soul Train Awards and branded merchandise, turning it into a cultural institution. Yet success came with complexity beneath the glamour. The very control that made the show a beacon also sowed seeds of tension that would later challenge its survival. These undercurrents quietly set the stage for the extraordinary challenges that would ultimately push Soul Train off the air. Even as Soul Train mesmerized audiences with its music and style, the forces shaping its future were already gathering beyond the spotlight, the heart of the show, music and dance. Soul Train's magic was grounded in its music and its dance, the core elements that electrified the screen every week. Beyond the mega stars performing their hits, the show showcased dancers whose artistry and innovation gave the show life and personality. Some of these dancers, like Jeffrey Daniel, left an indelible mark, teaching iconic moves such as Michael Jackson's Moonwalk to the world. Dance wasn't secondary on Soul Train. It was a language spoken fluently and passionately. The Soul Train line, perhaps the show's most iconic element, was more than a dance-off. It was a communal performance where individual creativity took center stage amid a supportive crowd. This tradition allowed dancers to express themselves freely, blending established steps with fresh invention. It wasn't just a competition. It was celebration and storytelling without words. Many dancers who appeared on the show later recalled the opportunities and challenges it provided. For some, like Rosie Perez, Soul Train launched careers and opened doors. Yet the dancers often performed without pay, relying on the exposure to boost their personal prospects. Over time, some voiced concerns about being exploited, as their talents helped build a profitable brand without direct compensation. Soul Train's music choices helped shape generations of listeners. It primarily spotlighted soul, funk, and rhythm and blues, giving a platform to artists often overlooked by mainstream media. The show brought the energy of live performance and the joy of dance to viewers who found representation and inspiration in every episode. This connection made Soul Train a cultural touchstone for Black music and identity. Fashion served as a second language which Soul Train mastered. The show demonstrated Black fashion through its colorful clothing and its daring hairstyle choices which had not been shown on television before. The aesthetic design of Soul Train created a weekly fashion show that brought fresh style ideas to its viewers. The music and dance movements of the show created an essential style which developed an exclusive cultural system that belonged to the show. Soul Train created a special experience which transformed all workers who danced and played music and hosted the show. The show functioned as a platform which combined talent with work opportunities while increasing performers' professional visibility. The creative environment which developed in this space created artistic work that influenced the whole entertainment business for 20 years. The show required ongoing efforts to manage its fundamental conflict between maintaining a family-friendly reputation and adapting to new social developments. The dance moves and musical styles had to balance between innovation and what Don Cornelius deemed appropriate, a dynamic that created both consistency and constraint. Black artists presented their authentic selves through their work, which became the main focus of Soul Train. The show created a space where Black artists could express themselves freely, building its core foundation through authentic artistic expression. The passing decades tested this foundational spirit while new problems emerged for society. The changing musical landscape and evolving youth culture would soon confront the show's traditions in profound ways. Don Cornelius's vision and control. Don Cornelius was the visionary architect behind Soul Train, steering the show with a firm hand and distinct philosophy. He wasn't just a host. He controlled every detail, from the music playlist and dancer choreography to the wardrobe and overall presentation. His meticulous oversight shaped Soul Train's unique identity as a polished, positive, and dignified portrayal of Black culture on television. Cornelius's calm and serious presence lent the show an air of gravitas uncommon on music programs. He saw Soul Train as a cultural statement, one that had the power to influence how Black Americans saw themselves and how the wider public perceived Black artistry. This belief drove his insistence on quality and propriety, ensuring the show avoided anything he felt was too provocative or negative. This control extended to the dancers, who were often given strict guidelines about what moves were acceptable. Rosie Perez recalled being told to tone down her dancing because it didn't fit Cornelius's vision. This sometimes caused friction between Cornelius and performers eager to push creative boundaries, but also helped maintain the family-friendly atmosphere that was central to Soul Train's brand. Cornelius's reluctance to embrace certain trends was rooted in his concern about the impact of media on Black representation. He refused to showcase music or performances that, in his view, promoted violence, explicit language, or disrespect toward the community. This stance would later create tension with changing musical tastes, especially as hip-hop rose in popularity. The creative aspects of Cornelius's work were under his complete control because he served as the main protector of the show's historical content and its fundamental message. His decisions established Soul Train as more than entertainment. It was a platform for Black pride, excellence, and aspiration. His influence extended into every aspect of the show, which he transformed into his own artistic vision. The leadership approach of this style created both advantages and disadvantages for organizations. The show maintained its consistent direction through this method, yet it created a barrier that prevented Cornelius from understanding current musical and youth cultural trends. His management style became perceived by some people as strict because he resisted changes brought about by evolving musical trends and audience preferences. The world acknowledges Cornelius as both a pioneer and protector of Black cultural heritage. He created a permanent organization which enabled a neglected community to gain representation on television throughout most of the 1900s. The vision Cornelius developed for Soul Train maintained its influence until the show faced its first major test when different musical styles and cultural movements emerged. The next decade's cultural shifts would push Soul Train into a difficult crossroads between tradition and transformation. The age of hip-hop and tensions. As the 1980s drew to a close, hip-hop music surged into mainstream culture, redefining the soundscape for a new generation. Soul Train, long the premier stage for Black music, faced a crossroads as this emerging genre gained popularity. Don Cornelius, however, was openly resistant to embracing hip-hop, viewing much of it as a negative influence. He criticized the genre for what he perceived as violent themes, explicit language, and imagery that didn't represent positive aspects of Black life. Cornelius's refusal to feature hip-hop artists put Soul Train at odds with youthful audiences who increasingly tuned into shows like Yo MTV Raps and Rap City on BET. These programs embraced hip-hop's raw energy and cultural expression, filling a gap Soul Train was unwilling to address. Iconic rappers such as Tupac Shakur, Nas, and Snoop Dogg rarely appeared on Soul Train, further deepening the divide between the show and the new wave of Black music. This resistance sparked criticism from musicians and industry insiders who saw Cornelius's stance as outdated and disconnected from evolving tastes. For many young viewers, Soul Train began to feel like a relic rather than a vibrant cultural hub. The show's reluctance to evolve with the times caused it to lose relevance with the very audience it had once galvanized. The 1990s showed continuous rating drops for Soul Train because hip-hop music emerged as the primary style of Black music. The show experienced a 50% decline in viewership, which dropped from its peak of 4 million viewers to 2 million viewers in the early 2000s. The show experienced decline because TV stations showed less interest in it by moving the program to worse time slots or replacing it with newer content. The transition also included Don Cornelius' departure from his hosting duties, which lasted for more than 20 years until his departure in 1993. None of the three successors who followed Maestro Clark Shimar Moore and Dorian Gregory could achieve the same level of success, as Cornelius succeeded in creating his unique presence on the show. The show experienced audience decline because their modernizing efforts, which included bringing in more hip-hop artists, produced only small improvements. Soul Train faced operational difficulties because internal organizational changes and economic problems created financial obstacles. The situation became serious because production teams cut back their episode work while employees left the company. The show faced financial challenges because it spent too much on production while both advertising income and viewership rates declined, which led networks and sponsors to rethink their financial backing. The show struggled to keep its position during a period when both cultural and commercial environments experienced transformation. The atmosphere of tension and change that built through those years would soon culminate in a scene with consequences no one could have predicted. The decline, changing times and challenges. By the early 2000s, Soul Train was a shadow of its former self, struggling to compete in a crowded television landscape dominated by fresh formats and youth-driven programming. Episodes became fewer, and the show lost much of its original spirit as key staff members left or were replaced. The loss of signature stars and clear direction left it feeling outdated and disconnected from contemporary audiences. Advertisers, once eager to bankroll Soul Train for its huge reach in Black households, started pulling back. The cost of production remained significant, but the shrinking audience made it increasingly difficult to justify the investment. Questions about the show's viability grew louder among networks and sponsors, contributing to an uncertain future. New singers and dancers were hesitant to associate with a show perceived as passé. The time slots it was relegated to no longer attracted prime viewers, and it failed to ignite the kind of excitement it once did. Without engaging content or a strong identity, Soul Train drifted toward obscurity, becoming a nostalgic footnote rather than a cultural beacon. The shift in hosts did little to halt the decline. While the new hosts brought their own talents, they lacked the deep connection with the audience that Don Cornelius had forged. Attempts to rebrand or modernize the show struck many as reactive rather than visionary. The core conflict between maintaining tradition and adopting new trends left Soul Train in a difficult balancing act that satisfied few. Don Cornelius withdrew nearly completely from the public eye during this period. Once the proud face and voice of the show, he now made few appearances and declined to comment on the show's struggles. His silence reflected a personal and professional disengagement, underscoring how far removed Soul Train had become from its origins. Despite the decline, the show continued to air weekly, clinging to its schedule even as its cultural relevance faded. Behind the scenes, tensions mounted among producers, staff, and networks. Morale flagged, and the collaborative vision that once drove Soul Train seemed fractured, hastening its unraveling. Then came the fateful day in 2006 when the final episode was taped in Los Angeles. What should have been another routine production instead felt chaotic and out of control. Last-minute crew changes, mismanaged guest lists, and backstage conflicts set an uneasy tone. Even Don Cornelius was reportedly backstage, visibly displeased at how the show had drifted from his original concept. The abruptness of the end left many questions unanswered and began a quiet chapter of reflection on what Soul Train truly represented and how it shaped generations. The infamous final episode. In March 2006, Soul Train was set to film what was supposed to be a routine episode in Los Angeles, but the day quickly unraveled into chaos. The crew was changed at the last minute, the guest list was disorganized, and the entire production seemed disjointed from the start. People who had worked on the show for years said it felt unlike anything they had experienced before, as if the very spirit of Soul Train was slipping away. Don Cornelius, though no longer officially involved, was reportedly backstage that day. Those who knew him said he was visibly unhappy with how far the show had strayed from his original vision. The episode itself featured a young hip-hop artist whose performance pushed boundaries the show had never crossed. The dancing, the costumes, and the visuals were more provocative, clashing sharply with the family-friendly image Cornelius had fought to uphold. Tensions escalated quickly, with disagreements erupting between the artist's management and the production crew, causing significant delays before filming even started. One former staff member recalled that the content felt disrespectful to the long-standing legacy of Soul Train. The atmosphere was strained, charged with a sense that the show's identity was no longer under control. The situation reached a breaking point when Don Cornelius reportedly called for filming to stop altogether. He convened an emergency meeting with key sponsors and TV stations to address the crisis. Soon after, Tribune Entertainment, a major partner in distributing Soul Train, decided to sever ties with the show. Without their backing, Soul Train lost critical access to local TV stations across America. The taping, which proved to be a disaster, caused more than 40% of the stations that broadcast Soul Train to stop showing the program within 3 weeks. The show's website remained inactive while all its existing broadcast times got replaced through the addition of new shows. The industry people who worked on the project knew that the episode had reached its final point because no official cancellation announcement had been made. The reports began to emerge about the buried episode, which brought about the mysterious conclusion of the show. The episode never showed on television, yet previous employees still possess some video content, which has resulted in fans calling it the cursed performance. Social media platforms became active with people sharing their theories about the situation while they mourned the disappearance of a significant cultural landmark. Soul Train transformed music and culture for generations, yet its ending remains one of television's most intriguing mysteries. It teaches us that even legends can face turbulence and change beyond the spotlight. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more deep dives into cultural history and share your thoughts below. We'd love to hear from you.